Hi guys, and welcome to what I thought was going to be the final entry in my Ring review series, but I have now discovered that in August there's going to be a brand new Ring film coming out. It's called Sadako, The Pendant of Mourning, so I'm going to have to cover that, aren't I? So I won't be able to do my ring rankings straight away. I'll have to hang fire a while, but do stay until the end of today's video to find out what I intend to do as a replacement for Ring once it's all done and covered. But I'm certainly ready for the end of this now. In fact, I'll let you in on a secret. The only reason why I covered A Quiet Place last week was just to give me an excuse to delay watching Sadako DX for another few days, because I really couldn't be bothered. I don't cover an awful lot of newly released films, just the odd one now and again, but I have finally now watched it, so it's time to do the review. This one is a sequel to Spiral, which was the first attempt at a sequel to the Japanese Ring. It came out way back in '98. Really odd choice to suddenly do a sequel to a film which wasn't really liked when it came out, so then they did a replacement sequel for it. Just really, really odd, but whatever. So this one was directed by Hisashi Kimura. You might remember him from such films as The Murders of Shinjinzu and 99.9 Criminal Lawyer. I'm not going to mention too many of the actors here, just one of them actually, Fuka Koshiba. I don't recognise any of her previous works, although when I was looking at her wiki page I did notice that she's represented by Oscar Promotions, and my first reaction was, yeah, right. But when I looked into this a little further, I found out that if you want to be represented by Oscar Promotions as a Japanese actor or actress, you have to not be in a relationship if you're under the age of 25. And I find that absolutely bonkers. What difference does it make if you've got a girlfriend or a boyfriend if you're being put forward for movies? But this particular actress, she's 27 now, so it's fine for her to date. But if anybody knows more about Japanese culture than I do, then what is the problem with people under 25 dating if they want to be in the acting business? It's really strange. But when it comes to the plot of this movie, it's very much a case of seen it all before. So the virus is spreading everywhere, all around the world, I believe, but we never see outside of Japan in this film, I don't think. There's this character called Ayaka, I think. Yeah. And her sister, her mother, they've all ended up watching a version of the tape, so they're all in trouble. There's this Z-list star of some description, this guy, he's cursed as well, and there's another guy who may be responsible for modifying the curse to make it just one day that you have to save yourself instead of 7, bizarrely. But for the most part, it's a very, very familiar Ring story, and I had trouble getting through the 1 hour and 40 minutes to the end credits. I mean, it's not a terrible, terrible movie, but I'm just done. And in fact, it took me 3 sessions to get through it. I had to watch it in a half-an-hour chunk one night, a half-an-hour chunk the second night, and then a 40-minute chunk to finish it off. That's just where I am with this. The characters in this film are really poorly written. I mean, the main heroine's all right. Ayaka's likeable enough, but the film is so desperate to tell you that she's a really intelligent girl. I mean, it really beats you over the head with this information. Early on, there's a scene where Ayaka makes some kind of deduction as to where somebody's been for the day or something like that, and her sister's like, oh, you're so clever, your 200 IQ shining through again. And the lots of instances like this where the film is just, you know, a big flashing light saying intelligent character right here, and you don't need to do that. We can figure out for ourselves whether a character is pretty smart or not. But if I've got some reservations about how Ayaka's been written, I've got millions when it comes to her sidekick in this film, Oji. He's the guy who Ayaka ends up being partnered with during the story. This is one of the worst characters I have ever seen in any movie. I'm not exaggerating. He's awful. I wanted him to die every second he was on screen. He's some kind of minor celebrity. He's in his early 20s. I'm not entirely sure what his deal was in this film in terms of what he does for money, because there's a scene in his apartment where his face is plastered all over like posters and magazines, but I don't know what he does. So I don't know whether I just missed that or what, but as a character, he's so annoying. He's cowardly. He's constantly screaming and carrying on when he thinks that Sadako might be close. He does this really annoying thing with his hand. So at one point, he kind of runs his finger below his nose like this, and then holds it out and goes, "So that's what I mean." It's like an indication that he's about to say something profound. He'll do this, and then say what it is that's on his mind. And he does this about 6 or 7 times during the film, but it just looks like he's wiping his nose and holding the snot up in front of him. It's such a bizarre thing to give to a character in a script. But Ayaka has got her own weird hand movement thing. So when she's about to do some deep thinking, she'll suddenly do this. Or something like that. It's just, why would you write the character this way? Why would somebody do that just when they're about to do some thinking? I can imagine a 5 or 6 year old girl doing that, maybe, when she's about to solve an equation of 2 + 2, because it's a daft thing that young children do, but not somebody in their early 20s who's really smart. It's just a bizarre bit of character writing. We don't see much of Sadako in this film, because every time the ghosts turn up, they're usually in the form of family members. So the victims, instead of seeing Sadako, they will see family members who are sort of walking like Sadako. It's a bit strange, but this doesn't really work for the most part, with one exception. So Ayaka's sister, she sees Ayaka herself coming towards her, and the thing is, she actually does look a little bit like Sadako in a way. So those scenes where Ayaka's sister's being attacked, they were all right. But for the most part, other characters being attacked by various family members, it just looks odd. I think they've done that to explain how the virus can be all over the place. But I think they should have just had it that Sadako is allowed to be in 50 million places at once, personally. Plus, the ghosts in this film walk so slow. They just shuffle like centimetres at a time, and it just takes some of the fright out of the whole thing. Now, in the older films, Sadako, once she came through the TV, she did appear to be walking quite slow just for that one moment, but then she suddenly teleported 10 yards in front of herself, and it was frightening. But in this film, characters have just got all the time in the world to get away. Ayaka and Oji, they're stood there, and there's a ghost one side, another ghost another side, and they're having a big conversation in the middle of all this, and then they run, and it's like, yeah, I think you need to make the Sadako ghosts a little bit more frightening than this. I will give the film one massive bit of praise, which is the new tape. The new tape in this is great. So we see it from Sadako's perspective from inside the well. The outside of the well, by the way, still looks like something out of a Super Mario game, but whatever. But we're inside the well with Sadako, and because we're watching through her eyes, we can't actually see her, which is kind of freaky. So she crawls out of the well, and what she then sees is the home of whoever's watching the tape, which is really freaky. It reminds me of a Stephen King short story called The Road Virus Heads North. A really vague reference probably, but credit where it's due, the videotape in this film is probably the only really impressive and decently thought out thing about it, I'd say. If you go onto the wiki page for this, it's actually described as a horror comedy, but it's absolutely not that. Not only is there nothing funny about this film during the entire length of the runtime, but I never really got the impression that it's even trying to be funny. There was one passage of the thing, maybe halfway through, where I suddenly thought to myself that the film was threatening to break out into some kind of black comedy state of being. And I don't know what triggered that thought, but I had it. I remember having it. But then the thought went away again, and for the rest of the film, it just felt like a normal horror film again, albeit not a very good one. When you get to the end credits of this, though, we do get some comedy, and it's weird that you'll suddenly get this comedy right at the end while the credits are coming down. So there's a few different scenes where people are sat in front of the TV, and Sadako is popping up behind people but freeze framing, and she can't quite get to people. She's moving extra slow somehow, and it's clearly meant to be funny at this point. But why have the comedy at the end, at this moment in time? It's just strange. It's totally at odds with the film that we've just watched. it's like there were two competing visions for this film, and that they just don't mesh with each other. I'm wondering if this film was originally written as a comedy, and then somebody in charge of the money said, no, it's got to be a horror film first and foremost. Take all that comedy out, or most of it anyway. And so what you're left with is a bad horror film with little traces of where the comedy used to be, except with the end credits, they've just decided to go for it at that point and leave it full-blown comedy. But it's just strange. I mean, it's like having a Halloween film with a blooper reel on the end credits. It just wouldn't fit. If you're going to do something like that with horror, you've got to have it in the features menu. Keep it separate from the main film, in my opinion, anyway. So normally at this point of the video, I would show you my copy of the film that I've just watched, but I don't own Sadako DX. I watched it on a website called, I think it's called dailymotion.com or something like that. It's free. How you get it is by typing in Sadako DX full movie on Google, and the top search result should be the link to this website where you can watch the movie, and it'll take you straight there. You won't have to register or anything like that. And it's a pretty good copy of the movie, very clear. I was able to fill my full phone screen this time. I couldn't do that with Sadako 2019. The only problem I had is that there's an advert now and again, which that's not the problem. When the advert ends on this website, it crashes the whole stream sometimes. So there were 2 or 3 times during this film where it crashed and I had to reboot it and move my little slider along to where I was in the movie previously, which is kind of annoying. But on the whole, I still had a better experience with this website than I did with the Bailey website that I used to watch Sadako 2019. I had a raft of problems trying to watch that movie on my phone. But this time, it wasn't too bad. My biggest problem was just the quality of the movie. Right, shall we get to the bag of terror and find out how I'm going to score this? So I'm going to give this 1.5 bloody axes out of 5. I think that's the same score I gave the previous film. Yeah, it's all gone a bit downhill towards the end, hasn't it? So there we are. Now, in terms of my plans going forward, now that I've run out of Ring films to review, I've been thinking about what other franchises I could do. I was tempted on Ju-On, the First Omen, sorry, not the First Omen, the Omen franchise, Critters, Paranormal Activity. I've been thinking about this and that idea, but ultimately, I think because my experience of the second half of the Ring franchise has been so bad, I think I'd just like to take a break from franchises for the moment. I've still got the ongoing Amicus review series anyway, but in terms of replacing Ring, I think I'm just going to take a step back and just do some solo film reviews for a while, not commit to anything too long. I've got that 15th Ring film coming out in August. I might hang on for that, do the Ring ranking, and then reevaluate. But for the next month, I'm not going to commit to any more franchises. So that's the state of play for the time being. But thank you for sticking with me all the way through these Ring films so far, if that is indeed what you have done, and I will catch you again another time. Bye bye.